Hello everyone, Tim here again for Droid Life, and we are still taking a look at the all-new Razer phone from Razer. Working up to our full review that will go live later this week, I promise, before Thanksgiving, just in case you know this phone has been something you're interested in. It's definitely a cool phone. I've been using it now for a solid few days over the whole past weekend, and I've learned quite a lot about it, so I want to share that with you. This, of course, is our tips and tricks for the Razer phone. I've got about 15 plus tips and tricks for you, only because you will realize that this is a pretty bare bones experience for Android on the Razer phone, but that's not to say it's lacking in features. So let's go ahead, dive right into it. The first thing I want to talk about, of course, is the Ambient Display. Now, you will know if you do purchase the phone is that this device does not have always on display, but it does have a ambient mode. And what that means is when say a notification comes in, your display will light up. Now, say versus a always on display is where the display is always on, constantly showing you your clock, your sort of date and alarms and all that. Ambient mode is pretty cool, at least for when those notifications are coming in. And then so to access that, you're actually going to dive into your settings menu, and then right there under device, you've got your display settings. And if you scroll down a little bit, you're going to see ambient mode. Or ambient display. It says wake screen when you receive notifications, so that's perfect if you don't need the always on display. You've at least got ambient display. Right underneath that, you've got tap to wake. Now, this is a feature we've seen on many devices, including the new Pixel devices, dates all the way back to LG. I think even HTC was implementing it a few years ago. But say your display is off, you need to quickly access your clock or whatever, you can just double tap on the display and it's going to wake up. Super handy. And then, of course, on this phone, the big deal is the display. Massive 5.7-inch display with up to 120 hertz refresh rate. So of course we're going to be focusing a lot on this display. Now, still under this display settings menu, you have scroll down a little bit. You've got display resolution. Now, if you don't need to be at WQHD, it's that 1440 by 2650 resolution, I believe. If you don't need that constantly, you can scroll that back down to say full HD, and the phone is just going to kind of turn off for a quick second, then pop right back up at full HD. Since I've been testing the battery, 4,000 milliamp hour, I've been having it cranked all the way to 1440p. Some people, they say they don't realize the difference, but when I'm playing my games and all that stuff, and something that's optimized for a higher resolution, then I always have it cranked every time I possibly can. Speaking of that 120 hertz refresh rate, though, under the display settings menu still, more near the top, we have that refresh rate. And you can change it between 60, 90, and 120. Again, I've had it cranked at 120 the entire time, so nothing I've really ever need to worry about. So as I said, pretty bare bones stock Android. As you can see, it's not really skinned heavily, and the settings menu doesn't have a whole bunch of weird stuff going on. But one of the cool things that we've got here are dual front-facing speakers, and they are super loud, Dolby Atmos. But what's really cool on the software side of these speakers is that built in you have this Dolby EQ that you can mess with. So really cool. I would play some music for you, but I can't get that copyright strike on this video or anything. But out of the box, it comes on the movie preset, and which is pretty flat, it would say, except if you go inside of each individual little setting here, there's the intelligent equalizer, and then also a few of these different options, like a volume leveler, dialogue enhancer, etc., etc. So what I've done is say inside of these custom settings you can double tap on them, and you can really get into the customization of the EQ itself. So I named it Blast Speed, of course, because I listen to a lot of heavier music, metal, and so what I did is I cranked some Cannibal Corpse, and I said, okay, what do I want to do? I want to up those mids because I want to hear the solos cut through a lot of the noise, and I also want those the snares and the hi-hats and all that stuff to really break through that heavy bass that they also use. So I just wanted to crank the highs, crank the lows, kind of lower the mids just a little bit. I don't need the vocals to break through all too much, so that's what I've done. And you can actually, if you can see here, try and recreate this setting. It's actually really good for metal music and all that, but that's how you can dive in and kind of customize the sound a little bit better when you're not using headphones. Of course, the phone does not have a 3.5mm headphone jack, so utilizing these dual stereo speakers on the front side really do come in handy. Highly recommend it. More so for the sound, I want to talk about Do Not Disturb. This is something that we kind of get into every single time. Oops, not under notifications, but under the sound setting. So every phone that has this, we always talk about it. We say, set up your Do Not Disturb mode. And it's the same thing on this phone. So underneath Do Not Disturb, I always set automatic rules. So for example, on my weeknights, I want to turn on at 10:30 so I don't get any notification sounds. I'll still get notifications, of course, but I just don't want the sounds playing. And then it'll turn off at 7:30 the next morning. And that's just basically every weeknight. On the weekends, I don't really care because I'm staying up later or whatever. But Do Not Disturb, just a nice little tool that Android basically has on every device now. So if you're not using it, definitely use it. Back to the settings menu here, we have something labeled as gestures. And the gestures, these are coming on a lot of phones too, but stock Android doesn't necessarily carry them all too much. Sometimes they have to be activated or enabled. But the one that I'm using right now was called Jump to Camera. And so say my display is turned off, got my phone here, I can just double tap on the power button and the camera will turn on. And I can just dive right in there and start taking pictures. The other option that they do have, here if I can jump back out of there. The other option they do have in there is the lift to check phone and to quickly check your notifications, pick up your phone. It's sort of like that ambient display, except notification isn't toggling it, it's the movement of the device that toggles that display to turn on. So nice little touch in there. Right below gestures is actually another really nifty thing that Razer has done here, and that's called Game Booster. So they say, this phone was created for gamers and all that, and I'm pretty much believing them, especially when they do utilize software tweaks such as this. So it's called Game Booster, and what it does is say you have a game installed on your device that is enabled under this Game Booster. I have a few games that are installed that aren't picked up by this little profiler. But the one I definitely use a lot is for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. And what I've done is because, I'm testing the battery life and all that stuff, I've cranked everything up. I've cranked the CPU usage. You can change the clock speed. I've got it set to 2.36 on that Snapdragon 835. And then we've got the resolution bumped all the way to 1440. I've got my frame rates jacked up. And of course, like for each game, you can change that. So if you don't need the performance to be high on another game, say you're playing a game that's, more 80s arcadey and you don't really need all the performance in the world, you can just crank that down and it'll essentially save your battery life a bit. And then anti-aliasing, which is sort of like a jagged edge definer, kind of helps the visuals of a game, the graphics. So very nice that you can kind of go in and set custom profiles for each game. Like on South Park, Phone Destroyer, Stranger Things. Like Stranger Things is a perfect example of a game that doesn't necessarily need high-end performance. So you can crank the resolution down, you can set your CPU usage low and your frame rates low, and it's not really going to affect the performance of the game, but it will affect your overall battery life if you're playing the game a lot. So definitely something to keep in mind. Now the phone does come with 64 gigs of storage. Of course, taking pictures, shooting in 4K or whatever, you can eat up that storage pretty fast. So if you actually scroll up a little bit underneath settings, you got your storage here, and then in the top you have a manage storage option. And if you got your storage manager, you can have it automatically remove photos and videos that are over 90 days old. And of course, I preach this, I talk about Google Photos, and I talk about the ability to have the backup and the free up space option, and it will automatically show which items are duplicated in your storage, and you can just go ahead and free up 115 megs. No reason not to, right? It's just free storage you got on your device. So it's going to do that. It's going to free up your extra storage. If you've got a lot of videos, a lot of photos you can take care of, and all that stuff is already saved to the cloud already, so why not do it? So as I was saying, Android is pretty bare bones on this phone, but what does come with it is Nova Launcher, and that's a first, for a phone to really come with Nova Launcher out of the box, and we're talking Nova Launcher Prime. So we can install different themes, we can really tweak the look of our display. If you've never messed with Nova Launcher Prime, that could essentially be its own video, like 10-minute, 20-minute video, so I won't dive into everything. But what I will show you is right out of the box, if you long press on the home screen and dive into the settings, you'll dive straight into the Nova Launcher settings. And so from here, you can set a persistent search bar. You can change up the style of the search. I've got more of your kind of classic Google search bar right now, but you can change it to look like honeycomb. You can change up the logo, color, all that. You can change up the desktop grid, scrolling effects. You can mess with the folders, but more importantly, you've got your look and feel here. And under look and feel is where you can change up the icon themes. And so right now I just have it set to the stock Android look for Marshmallow 6.0. But of course you can download any hot icon packs from Google Play. I got iRide, Hipster, and Fix. Both very good icon packs. They also come with wallpapers, etc. I would really suggest just taking the time and diving into Nova Launcher. You can do a lot of nifty stuff with it, and it's, you know, even when it doesn't come preloaded on a phone, it's one of the first things we download on any phone that we receive. And of course, after the review period, we utilize it to its full potential. So definitely something to look into. On top of that customization option, Razer does have its own custom theme store right here, and pretty cool. Some of the themes are kind of corny, I will say, but some are pretty cool. So if we go down here, we can go over to the featured option. And so really a lot of the themes are based on games, of course, like Worms and Super Samurai Rampage and Dying Light and all that cool stuff. So say we go over to Dying Light, you'll notice that it will change up the color of the dialer, the icons. It'll give you a custom wallpaper. But what's really cool is that it'll even give you custom sounds. So a sound for a notification, ringtone, alarm, etc. You can preview those and then simply just add them. But then also Razer has its own themes that aren't based on a game. So I've been using one in particular called Razer Vice all the way over to the right here. These are all free themes. But as you can see, it'll change up the clock theme, dialer, notification pull down. I'll click apply here just because it's actually pretty darn cool and I want to show you how you can change up the look. But again, it comes with custom alarm, notification. I will say the alarms are absolutely terrible. Notification sound is absolutely terrible. But the theme looks good. Just to give you a preview here, I'll show you what the alarm sounds like. I don't know anyone who wants to wake up to this, but here you go, check it out. Actually, I'll have to start from the beginning here for you. Now that would give me a panic attack if I woke up and heard that, so I don't mess with the sound. Of course, you can change that all by yourself, but I do love the way that it looks, and it should be applied now, yep. So say I pull down now, it's all nice purple and white. It's got a little pink accent here. Dive into the settings. This is all kind of blued out, looks really good. I just love the ability to quickly change up the look of your phone. Like anytime a phone comes with a theme manager or anything like that, I totally fall in love. So huge props to Razer for doing that, and then props to, you know, having Nova Launcher Prime out of the box, where the customization options really are limitless when you pair those two. So fantastic. Another thing with Nova Launcher, so let's say you long press on it and then you hit widgets and you can go into Nova Action, and then we just long press, drag it to the home screen here, and then what you're going to get is a huge list of things that you can do quickly on your phone with just the press of a single button. So say I want to screen lock my phone, I can just have a dedicated button for that. Like right now I got a dedicated button for Assistant. Assistant will pop up, fantastic, press that screen lock. There are different options for the screen lock, but if you want to immediately lock it, you can just select device admin or just a timeout, which will black out your screen. So there's a lot of different cool stuff you can do with Nova, and you know, as I mentioned, that theme store, so there's a lot of cool stuff to play with. Because it does have Nova Launcher, and Nova Launcher does now work with Google Now, you can essentially go in here. I want to talk about customization for Google Now. And so when you pull that out the side on the left, you can go into customize feed. You can follow different groups or sports teams or whatever. You can unfollow things. Google Now isn't necessarily as good as it was because you can't really easily swipe away certain stories. But a lot of the good stuff is coming back, at least the new version of Google Now. So definitely something to customize. No reason you should have to, see news you don't want to see or anything like that. So any type of customization is good in my book. So definitely keep your eye open on that. And then lastly, because this is just a A fantastic thing for all Android users to know is how to take a screenshot on this thing. So of course you got your power button right here on the right side, and then your volume rockers right here. You take a screenshot simply by pressing on the power button and volume down, and then at the same time. And there you go. There's a screenshot. Super easy peasy. This has been our tips and tricks for the Razer phone. Again, like I said, expect our full review later this week. If you guys have any questions or comments about the Razer phone, since I do have it in-house and maybe you're on the fence about it, if you got a question about it, just let me know. I'll hit you up and let you know what I think. And until then, we are Droid Life. Peace.